What's going on, people? My name is Alex Elliott and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be checking out the SPL Machine Head, and we're going to first check it out on the overall mix and then dive into some individual elements. Let's jump straight into this one. My first impression is this thing is added like a lot of energy, but also there's this sense of like gluing things together. But let's also check out the high frequency adjustment to see what that's doing. Now, of course, I'm using this on the overall mix, so I'm level matching it down to -3. But the reality is we're going to be using this thing to make our mixes louder, right? So I'm going to go ahead and not level match it and just allow the volume to be boosted. Let's check it out. Now that feels dope, but let's go ahead and check out on some of these individual elements as well. So I'm gonna go ahead and loop this section with the bass on it, and then we can just have a listen and see what kind of tones we can get out of it here as well. Now, when I flip this thing into the ultimate mode, then I actually get the option to do a low frequency adjust, which is boosting the low end, as well as a high frequency adjust. So I want to see how much low end I can boost into this whilst keeping that same peak level. And let's just see if we can blow this bass up. Let's check it out. Now, something strange is going on here because I'm not hearing a massive difference anymore, and I'm not completely sure why. Now, I'm curious to see what happens if I allow the output to hit 0, right? But then I use a utility plugin afterwards to bring the volume down, because I'm not sure what's going on with the gain staging, but I suspect that it could be the case that when it hits 0, is it hitting like another stage of some form of clipping, because I can also drag this output above 0, for example. Let's check that out together. Get out of there with that, man. That is mad. Now, I think SPL, you missed the trick here a little bit. I think that you need an additional knob on here. You need additional button on here. Your output gain should be doing what it's doing, but I think you need another knob now that says like output level or something, so that we can actually allow this plugin to distort itself, and then we can then bring the overall volume down afterwards. If you can add that in an update, I think that's absolutely needed, because doing this has now made that bass sound absolutely insane, versus if I take this off. Now, of course, that might be too much bass for some of you guys out there. It's definitely not too much bass for me. But having the option to be creatively distorting things in that kind of way, I think is really powerful. So just adding an extra output volume knob will just give us the flexibility to do that. But let's also go and check this thing out on an individual instrument. I've got these strings going here that I played in and then chopped up and sampled, and I want to see if I can draw more energy out of those as well. But let's check that out together. I feel like the high end on this could really work quite well for these strings. Now, so far, this thing is sounding absolutely outrageous, but let's check out in Plugin Doctor and let's have a little nerdy moment. I've just increased the output gain. Only reason being is when it's dropped down, it's quite low and you can't quite see what's happening with the EQ as well. So I've just boosted the output gain just for the simple purpose of having it more visible on screen. Now, firstly, in the ultimate mode, you've got that low frequency adjust and you've got that high frequency adjust. So if we check out the low frequency, interestingly enough, it's not actually like doing anything to the subs per se, but it's actually boosting at a center frequency of around 75 hertz, which is really quite perfect because anything below 50 hertz is great on a full range system, but 75 hertz, when you start messing with sound bars, phone speakers, laptop speakers, you can still get the perception of that frequency. And of course, as you boost that, it's then creating more additional harmonics as well, which we can actually see here. So if I lower this, you can see that we're actually getting a change and an increase in the harmonics as we're changing that EQ as well. Then of course it isn't only boost, you can also cut as well here, which is useful. If you've got too much low end in your mix, you can use this to just adjust the overall low end, and that will also affect the amount of saturation you're getting out of this plugin as well. If you adjust the high end here, you can see how it's just giving it a nice boost. It can be quite aggressive, and actually as I was turning this up on the strings, I did feel like a little goes a long way with this particular EQ, but it's quite straightforward here. Now if we go over and have a look at the harmonics as well, then we can also see that as you boost this around about 7.5, there seems to be maybe a change. I'm not sure if it's the impulse response, but there's a clear distinctive change, and it kind of goes to a different algorithm, I guess, where there's a lot more saturation. So if you are using this and you want it to be more the subtle side, I guess, then stay into the lower numbers. And if you want to get really aggressive, then going above 7.5 really seems to boost the harmonics there as well. Now, one thing I'm interested in is as I lower this output volume, does that also have an effect on the harmonics? So if we pay attention to this area here, have a notice on how it changes. Now this makes sense that this is happening because if you actually zoom in here, you can actually see that it says clip once it gets to above 0. Bruv, how long is it going to take for this police car to drive past, bro? Oh my days. So for me personally, my thoughts, I think it's a well thought out plugin. If you have tons of clippers already, it's not like absolutely necessary that you need to add another clipper. However, if you're like me and you're just like the equivalent of a sneakerhead, but in plugin form, where you're like, listen, I want every color, I want every single taste, I want every single option at my disposal, I think you should absolutely add this plugin to your color palette, because it is giving me something different to those other plugins. And it's just got a nice way of just rounding out the low end and the tone that just feels great. If you enjoyed this review, let me know in the comments down below. What do you think of this plugin? And if you like this kind of content, be sure to like and subscribe. Other than that, I look forward to seeing you all next time.